that the reduction will apply to learners who are in school uniform traveling to or from school between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. in the morning and also from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. This initiative by the association will go a long way in promoting and ensuring access to schooling and maximum attendance for learners that do not currently benefit from the scholar transport. We call on this House to appreciate the efforts of the Letaba Taxi Association to provide transport and to reduce cost to our learners in the Maroleng area and to ensure that our learners get to school safely. We call on the Department of Education to negotiate similar initiatives with taxi associations across the province for learners who do not qualify for scholar transport. I so do move. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Smiley. Any seconder? Honourable Maharaj.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I, Honourable Maharaj, hereby second the motion as delivered by Honourable Smaller. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any motions without notice? Honourable Apiri.
Thanks very much, Honourable Speaker, and a very good morning to you and the House at large. Honourable Speaker, on behalf of the ANC, we want to send message of condolences on the passing on of Comrade Azwifari Dick Ralushai, who passed away on Friday, the 5th of March, 2021. Comrade Dick, as he was known, was born and raised at Chififi, outside Toyando. He completed his secondary education at Mpapuli High School, where he had already become politically active before proceeding to the University of Zululand. Comrade Dick fought against apartheid, Bantustans, and all their manifestations. He participated in various structures of the movement, including Northern Transvaal Action Committee, Umkhonto weSizwe, and the ANC. This led him to being detained countless times. Comrade Dick counted President Ramaphosa amongst his contemporaries, but he has not shouted even once to the rafters about his struggle credentials. We also want to pass our motion of condolence to the family of Karima Brown, ENCA TV host and journalist, whose death is a huge loss to the media fraternity. May their soul rest in peace. Accordingly.
Thank you, Honourable Apiri. Seconder to the motion, Namlela. Thank you very much. Honourable Slam. Honourable Mat, your hands is up. Are you having a motion? Yes.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and good morning to members of this House. Honourable Speaker, we have been made aware that one of the esteemed members of this august House seems to be a tax fraudster who is doing the most unscrupulous things to evade paying tax, of which that is an obligation that every law-abiding citizen with an income must fulfill. Honorable Speaker, tax fraud and evade, we had tax fraudster and evaders in the past, but we were just not aware that one of them could be one of us in this August House. According to weekend media reports, with special reference to Sunday Times, a certain Jacob Smale has forced his subordinates to open a bogus bank account
Honorable Mati,
for his nefarious use
Honorable Mati,
for
there
of
is a point of
evading
order.
paying taxes. Honorable Speaker, as the legislature, we might not have the legal muscle to rein in this con artist,
Honorable
but we
Mati,
will constantly remind him that it is hoodlums like him who drag the name of this house in the mud by
Yes.
undermining its oath.
Honorable Mati,
We will keep an ear on this development to check on how
can you
that
wait?
plays
Honorable
out.
Mati.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Come here.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I've been raising my hand for a while, but I was ignored. Nonetheless, the honourable member needs to submit a substantive motion because the allegations that are in the paper, like many allegations that have been brought amongst your members, are not yet been
Honorable
proven.
member.
So please bring a substantive motion.
Can you proceed? Honorable member, if you don't agree with the motion, we'll rather raise an objection, unlike addressing the House. That was not the procedure. Can you proceed, honorable members? Are there any motion without notice in terms of House Rule 145? Okay. The motion was not second. Any seconder to the motion that was raised by Honorable Mate? No, honorable member, I was advising. I've ruled on that one. I was advising. Honorable member, I was advising that if you want to object the motion in future, not now, I was advising you. Can we proceed? Any seconder to the motion? Honorable Khanyan.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Good morning, Honorable Members. I, Honorable Nakedi Maria Lekhanyane, hereby second the motion as presented by Honorable Mate. I so move, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Any motion without notice? Honorable Kekan, your hand is up. Honorable Kekan, sit down. Honorable Kekan, just wait. The motion is objected. Honorable Chief Whip.
Honorable Speaker, good morning. I therefore call for the division of the House on the motion.
Okay. The motion, honorable members, the motion was objected. The motion was, honorable members, order. The motion was objected and they've called for the division of the House. So I wanted to check from all members, those who are agreeing with the motion to say yeah. Those who disagree? So the yes prevail. Thank you. Honorable Kekani, it's your turn.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker. Good morning to the House at large. Honorable Speaker, I, Nakedi Kekana, rise to present a motion without notice for the House to take note. Honorable Speaker, we rise on behalf of the ANC in this August House to condemn in the strongest possible terms an incident in which its personnel and patients were robbed at gunpoint by two unknown men on the N1 road not too far from Mansoleway Bridge. Honorable Speaker, this incident involved a planned patient transport which was transporting patients from Kensani and Maputa Malachi Hospital in Mopani to George Mukari Hospital. According to reports, Honorable Speaker, the patient's transport vehicle had a punctured tire and the driver went to inspect it. Upon stopping, he was confronted by two gun-toted males who then robbed them together with the patient's valuables. Honorable Speaker, the vehicle was reportedly carrying 4 patients, 2 transferring nurses, and 2 EMS drivers who were all robbed of their belongings. This incident is linked to syndicates who operate along the N1 stretch by placing spikes and sharp objects to damage car tires and rob travelers. We are confident that the police will apprehend the suspects and make arrests soon. I so move, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Kekan. Any second? Honorable Mnyaman.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I, Sarah Munyamani, rise to second the motion by Honorable Kekana. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mnyaman. Let's proceed to item 3. Are there any notices? Any motion without notice? Honorable Makrupet.
Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker, Honorable Premier in absentia, MECs, Chief Whip, and members of the legislature. I, Makoma Makrupechi, stand here on behalf of the African National Congress to indeed put a motion that yesterday was an International Women's Day, the whole world. The International Women's Day, it's a day that has been put there by the socialist movement in 1917. And the United Nations has started celebrating the International Women's Day in 1977. As South Africa, we stand here to celebrate the achievements that indeed through the International Women's Day, the women of the world, yesterday were celebrating with Africa, Pan-African Women Organization, that women indeed are in the forefront. We take this opportunity to congratulate all the movement on all structures that has celebrated the International Women's Day. And we stand here to say International Women's Day cannot continue to whereby women are given responsibilities, but the society has not yet accepted that women are leaders in their own right. Therefore, we are calling upon the society in general to work together to say issue of gender equality must continue to be celebrated and supported. The issue of patriarchy is still there, irrespective of whether you are at home, you are at the society, you are at the educational level, political space, and everywhere. All of us, we have to deal with the demon of patriarchy and ensure that women are given the space where they're supposed to be, that indeed women cannot to continue to be in the kitchen. As we do that, we continue to do that in celebrating Meshalot Matleke, that this year, if she was alive, she was supposed to be celebrating 150 years old. This year, we celebrate that and say, in their footsteps as women, supported by men, will continue to deal with challenges that are facing our young children today, gender-based violence, and other issues. On that basis, Madam Speaker, I hereby move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Makurubecha. Any seconder to the motion? Honorable Selane.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Notices of motion in terms of House Rule 146? None. Maybe before we can proceed for a moment of the May the soul of Comrade Dick rest in peace. Thank you. Item 4. Are there any statements by members in terms of Rule 200? Honorable Rapela.
Thanks, Honorable Speaker. Yeah. Kawan collision to mobile matata is so hey, matata. Honorable Speaker, there is no political will on the part of government to change the lives of the people for the better. As it happened with all other districts of the province, government started building RDP houses in 16, Makurutamagas Kukuni district in 2013, but these houses were never completed to date. The people of Makurutamaga have been waiting patiently for government to complete these houses, but they have since given up. By the way, we're talking about the poor masses who do not have the roof over their heads and who do not know where the next meal will come from. Heartless and unrepentant shady contractors just collected money and ran away without completing the project. The still taxpayers' money is aided by officials and politicians, and I hope they're paying tax. None of these contractors have been blacklisted by government as they continue to do business with the government, with other different projects. This problem is perpetuated by the fact that there is no consequences management in the current administration of Premier. The Limpopo provincial government is a banana republic where the rule of law is completely absent. That's why Mikuku Bayaha. We call upon the MEC of Coxstar to investigate not only this matter, but many other incomplete houses across the province. Lielia Mikuku, Honorable MEC. Arapatela text.
Thank you, Honorable Rapela. Honorable MEC.
Thanks very much, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. And thanks very much, Honorable of Incomplete Houses, specifically in Ward 16, Makudu Tamar. I must indicate that we will welcome the statement as issued, but we should be able to report to this House that we have already started doing audit in the whole province for all the incomplete houses, not only those that were left in 2013-2014 financial year, including those that have been left since 2000, just to make sure that we're able to complete those. And it has been clear, and if you have followed the social media and the program of Coxstar, we were at Mukhalakwena just recently to complete houses which were left and were able to be handed to the families, and the beneficiaries were happy to have received their houses complete. But I must also indicate that we have taken a decision in the department that any contractor who has left an incomplete house should not be allocated, even if that particular person is still in the pool of contractors of the department. We also have dealt with, and I think you were here and followed the Premier when he spoke about what you call Mkuku or the Talani project of the TRUs. That investigation, and the Premier has called in the SIU to do the investigation. And they have been able to, as we speak, not less than 6 people have been arrested out of the project which they have done that project. So the Premier has been taking action on the issue of alleged corruption that was said to be in that project. And we hope that the arrested people or the alleged people will. So as government, we continue to be acting on all those things. But of the incomplete houses, we can assure you we are busy dealing with them and we'll be able to achieve what we expect to do. Thanks.
Thanks, Honorable MEC, for the response. Any statement by members? Honorable Mphahlele.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members of this August House, good morning. Dilapidated bridge between Mahweliring and Ramadiba. Honorable Speaker, the bridge between Mahweliring and Ramadiba is completely a mass interrupting day-to-day lives of the people. The bridge is small and not user-friendly at all because the river water overwhelms it during the rainy season and becomes completely invisible. It is difficult for poor people to go to Mahweliring and Ramadiba because of this small bridge. School children also find it difficult to cross the bridge to go to school, especially during rainy season. The state of the bridge affects economic and social activity of the area. As a result, the people continue to suffer. Taxis and cars also find it difficult to cross the bridge while people are expected to go to work every day. This matter was brought to the attention of the Department of Public Works, Road and Infrastructure several times, but it was ignored. How long must people wait for them to get a new bridge that will make their lives easily? How many people should die on this bridge before a new one is constructed? By the way, we are dealing with the reactionary government that wait for tragedy to happen before they can take a service to the people. We need proactive government that will put interest in the people first. We call upon the MEC of Public Works, Road and Infrastructure to investigate this matter and find solution to the poor people of Makulireng at Ramadi. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mpatlen. Any member from the executive who want to respond?
Thank you very much, Honorable Madam Speaker. I just want to take note of the statement as presented by the Honorable Member. So far where I'm standing, I would have expected the Honorable Member, before she could actually come and make this wild statement, to most probably, because I'm within reach, she could have touched base with me to get clarity, to make follow-ups on whatever that might have been communicated to the department. But I'm not surprised by the posture that she's taking, because she's not different from a proverbial fly trying to move a dunghill. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Other members? Thank you. Any statement by members in terms of Rule 200? Members' order. Are we done with member statement? So let's proceed. Your hand is up, Shok. Do you have a member statement?
Thank you for the opportunity, Honorable Speaker. If you remember the previous sitting in this House, the EFF presented a motion on the capture of the SAPS by the White Cabal. And in that statement, the MEC responsible responded by committing that she will come and respond to those things. So I'm just checking with you if you are going to give her an opportunity to respond as she committed that she's going to make an investigation and come and report to in this House today. So I just want to check with you if indeed you are going to give an opportunity to give us a response on that statement, because it has been now a norm, and Honorable Speaker,
Honorable Shoga,
that
sit down.
Statements are presented and are not responded to.
Honorable Shoga, sit down. Honorable Shoga, don't abuse the platform. We are on the member statement, Honorable Shoga. No, your hands was up. I thought maybe we are going to raise a member statement. So that is why I'm saying sit down. Yes. Other members. Honorable members, order. No.
The MEC committed last week that on our member statement. After the great investigation, I was asking you if you are going to give an opportunity to give us a progress on the investigation, on the statement.
Honorable members, honorable members, order. but she didn't indicate. Honorable Shoke. Honorable members, I said order. Honorable Macha and Honorable Shock, I'm going to chase you out if you continue like that. I'm saying order. There is an Honorable Shock, I wanted to remind you, I was checking from the rules to say a member statement is not an instruction to the executive members of. It mustn't be seen as an instruction. If you raise the statement and it's not an instruction to the MECs, they will respond. If they don't have the response, they will arrange a date on which they will respond on. So that is why I'm saying it mustn't become as an instruction.
She's the one who committed that she going to make an investigation and should come and present today. And that's why I'm asking you if you're going to give it and watch for the problem. She's the one who made that commitment.
Yes, I'm agreeing, but it mustn't be seen as an instruction. I'm saying just wait until the MEC is ready to respond. Is what I'm saying. No, I'm not going to allow you to agree with the speaker. Yes, what I'm doing. Yes. Honorable members, it's unfortunate because we are using this hybrid sitting. So unfortunately, I didn't see Honorable Ramakanya. Her hand was up. She wanted to respond. So let's give Honorable Ramakanya the space to respond. But I was reminding you that in future, you mustn't instruct the MEC. A statement is not an instruction. You raise it and they will respond on that time. So let's wait. Honorable Ramakanya wanted to respond.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and good morning to the House, Honorable Premier, my colleagues in the executive, and honorable members who are in the House and those that are on virtual. Madam Speaker, I thought also Honorable Sishoka by now is very clear of the processes that after member statements on your program, you were going to ask us, any member of the executive, if we have got any presentation that we want to make to the House. So it is a painful situation that after all these months that he's a member of the House, he still thinks that we do not have such a space. But thank you, Honorable Speaker. In response to this statement made by the EFF in regards to the Limpopo Highway Patrol, the following serves as a response to the aspect raised. 1. The SAPS Limpopo Department Visible Policing consists of various departments, which includes inter alia, Provincial Emergency Response Services, Social Crime Prevention, and Visible Policing. All these departments has one budget under Visible Policing, Madam Speaker. 2. The Provincial Emergency Services consist of various sub-departments that include K9 dog unit, mounted units, those are horses, hostage and suicide negotiators, search and rescue unit, road accident unit, Provincial Flying Squad, and Highway Patrol. All these sub-departments have one sub-budget under Provincial Emergency Services. The Limpopo Highway Patrol was established and started to be operational from the 15th June 2020. Members were recruited from stations specifically not to remove members from the flying squad within the Limpopo province. The Limpopo Highway Patrol consists of 44 members with 15 Volkswagen GTI Golfs. All the vehicles are marked and equipped with rotating blue lights. 5, Madam Speaker. The 15 vehicles were issued from the SAPS National Head Office, from the budget of the National Head Office, and vehicles were issued with clear instructions, which include that these vehicles must only be deployed on the provincial highway and byways. The province is complying strictly to these instructions. All provinces in South Africa received these high-performance vehicles dedicated to serve on highway and byways on the respective provinces. Number 6, highway patrol vehicles are all high-performance sedans that cannot successfully operate on gravel roads or farm roads. Thus, these vehicles are not used in rural safety or farm areas. For this specific reason and in support of the National Rural Safety Strategy, LDVs and 4x4 vehicles were issued to all rural safety stations within the province in support of rural safety. It must be kept in mind, Honorable Speaker, that rural safety not include farms only, but also rural villages that cannot be easily accessed with normal sedan cars. Colonel Potgieter is a white female with the rank of colonel, who is appointed as the provincial head of the Provincial Emergency Services within Limpopo Province. Colonel Emil Matsiva is the current acting head of the Department Supply Chain Management in the Limpopo Province. All logistics items are procured within the approved procurement process, but it needs to be mentioned that there were no special items procured for Limpopo Highway Patrol in the current financial year. The Limpopo Highway Patrol is very important and effective in the fight against crime in the province. Madam Speaker, allow me to talk about the activities that they've been involved in. In the past 9 months of operation, already they have achieved the following successes. Number 1, in drugs, 236 arrests and drugs to the value of 9.2 million were confiscated. Illicit cigarette trade, 91 arrests and cigarette with the value of 1.4 million were confiscated. Possession of gold, 1 arrest of gold to the value of 70,000 were recovered. Firearms, 63 arrests were effected for the possession of illegal and unlicensed firearms, and these firearms were confiscated. Possession of stolen properties, 32 arrests were effected, and to the value of stolen items recovered, it was 1.1 million. Theft for motor vehicle, 33 suspects were arrested and vehicles recovered with the value of 3.4 million. Explosives, 3 suspects were arrested for possession of explosives used in CTI robberies and ATMs bombings. Other arrests, Madam Speaker, includes housebreaking, business premises, 6 arrests were done, armed robbery, 15 arrests were done, business robbery, 12 arrests were done, house robbery, 2 arrests were done, attempted murder, 7 arrests were done, and under murder, 6 arrests were done by this squad. A total number of arrests affected for serious crimes, which include crimes not mentioned above, is 634. The Limpopo Flying Squad, however, is a serious concern. It is a sub-department that it is under-resourced in all aspects. And as the provincial management is prioritizing the Flying Squad in the coming financial year, you will remember, Madam Speaker, that since the 9 months, that this team has been put in place. These are the success stories that have happened. So I want to conclude by saying it is absolute clear with the above in mind and the statement that we have just, and the report that I've just given, that the statement made by the honorable member of the EFF were based on false and unfounded information. We can see that the statement made last week, it was just for the member to want us to confirm issues that are not there. So I conclude by saying the statement is unfounded and baseless. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity.
Miss yes, I feel that she's out of order. I'm calling her to apologize, to withdraw that statement. So please.
Honorable Shoge, I will take that from the answer. Honorable members, let's proceed. Honorable members, item 5, any executive statement? Any executive statement in terms of Rule 201? If none, are there any tabling of committee reports, other reports and papers? Also none. Honorable members, you are making noise. I'm saying order and order. You continue making a lot of noise. First reading of the Limpopo Third Adjustment Appropriation Bill by the MEC for Provincial Treasurer. MEC.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Speaker of the Provincial Legislature, Deputy Speaker, all Premier, members of the Executive Council present in the House, and those who are on the virtual platform, my colleagues in this august House, ladies and gentlemen, I present here with the third adjustment budget to the 2020-21 provincial budget. In compliance with the Division of Revenue Act, the National Department of Human Settlements has stopped a transfer of an amount of 50 million of the Integrated Housing Human Settlement
for consideration and to report back to the House. Item 7.2, first reading of the Limpopo Appropriation Bill, also by the MEC for
Honorable Premier of the Province, Mtate Chupuma Tabata, members of the Executive Council, members of this August House, the Director General of the Province and all heads of departments present, CEOs of our various entities, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Madam Speaker, Honorable Premier, honorable members of this August House and all members or people of the great province of Limpopo connected to this session through various broadcast and social media platforms. It remains my privilege yet again to present the second provincial budget of the sixth administration. I therefore table before this August House the Limpopo Appropriation Bill 2021, Overview of Provincial Revenue and Expenditure 2021, Social Economic Review and Outlook 2021, Estimates of Provincial Revenue and Expenditure 2021, and the supporting gazettes of the bill. The Reconstruction and Development Program adopted in 1994 asserts that no political democracy can survive and flourish if the masses of our people remain in poverty without land and without tangible prospects of a better life. Attacking poverty and deprivation must therefore be the first priority of a democratic government. The tabling of this budget is thus largely informed by the wisdom espoused to office. They are wise in the use of wealth, wise in knowing and understanding our wishes and needs, and wise in expecting us to express ourselves to them in any appropriate manner we have agreed to be allowable. Close quote. Honourable Speaker, it is therefore imperative to acknowledge that this provincial budget is presented during this unprecedented and difficult economic times, with the national economy having declined by 7.8% in 2020. In fact, our economy was already performing relatively poor and only to be further compounded by the COVID-19 disaster. I therefore table this budget confidently with the conviction that our economy may be weakened and our confidence shaken. Though we are living through difficult and uncertain times, we will rebuild, we will recover, and Limpopo will emerge stronger than before. Madam Speaker, in 2021-22 budget presented by the Minister of Finance, the National Treasury expects that the South African economy will increase by 3.5% during the 2021 and by 2.2% in 2022. The economic and financial shocks, such as the global financial crisis, has hindered the country from reaching full potential. This shocks has been intensified by COVID-19 pandemic, which has slowed the process of faster economic development even longer. Equally, our provincial economic growth rate is in a downward sloping trajectory since 2011. The 2010 World Cup fiscal expenditure could not sustain investor and consumer confidence for a protracted period. Commodity prices slumped and the surge in crude oil prices weighed down on the local economy. The provincial economy has recorded two consecutive contractions from 2.2% in 2017 to 0.5% in 2018 and further declined to a marginal negative 0.1% in 2019. However, the projected increase in demand for commodities from emerging markets is likely to spur local economic growth and job creation. Our Premier, although global economic activity is gaining momentum again, it is not likely to return to business as usual for the medium term when compared to the levels of economic output before the pandemic. The deterioration in confidence has undeniably dampened the investments. It is, of course, disheartening to note that the official unemployment rate in the province has been rising even prior COVID-19. It rose from 18.5% in the first quarter of 2019 to 26.3% in the third quarter of 2020, while national rate rose from 27.6% in the first quarter of 2019 to 30.8% in the third quarter of 2020. And the expanded unemployment in the province rose from 41.1% in the second quarter of 2019 to 46.9% in 2020. And those that are hard hit and those who are bearing the brunt of this unemployment are young people. Unemployment in the province is perpetuated by the general low skills base, where the unemployed people possesses lower than the prerequisite skills of different skills base than what the market requires. This, ladies and gentlemen, remains an indictment on us and needs urgent attention if we are to turn around the tide. However, as the government of Limpopo, we remain committed to resuscitating the provincial economy to ensure economic and social prosperity for all our people. Our recovery will be underpinned by necessary structural reforms to augment sector productivity and overall accelerated economic growth. The Limpopo Socio-Economic Recovery Plan is now aligned to the National Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, and it builds on existing government programs that are outlined in the Limpopo Development Plan and the revised Limpopo Industrial Master Plan 2020-2030. And in the foreseeable future, the provincial government will implement mega programs and projects guided by the Limpopo Industrial Master Plan. The provincial government strategic intervention to save lives and livelihoods encompasses: 1, the scaling public employment programs; 2, industrialization through sector-led development and infrastructure development; 3, the building the capacity of the state to implement the industrialization program. As Jijo, is something that is troubling me here. Since you came in, it is here. We are pleased to announce that in the midst of the pandemic's gloom and doom, the number of employed people in the province increased from 1,151,000 in the second quarter of 2020 to 1,266,000 in the third quarter of 2020. The rebound is attributed to the relaxation of lockdown regulations, where most sectors of the economy were allowed to reopen. Madam Speaker, the provincial administration continues to provide proper fiscal discipline in terms of expenditure of the provincial budget. During the 2019-2020 financial year, audit outcomes of the provincial departments improved on an overall basis, with 4 departments, including the August House and 1 public entity, receiving clean audits. The local municipalities in the province are also actively being supported to improve their audit outcomes. In terms of expenditure priorities, except for the expenses to curb COVID-19, the focus of this year's budget is on the promotion of economic growth and to address the triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. In this regard, a key focus will be on preferential procurement from the local SMMEs and increasing the capacity of industrialization in the province. The 2020-21 overall provincial expenditure at the end of January 2021 is 55.4 billion, or 77.6% spending of the 71.3 billion of the 2020-21 adjusted budget. The low spending was mainly influenced by the state of the nation disaster declaration and COVID-19 lockdown, since most of the activities were on hold during the lockdown periods. Madam Speaker, this provincial budget is financed mainly from equitable share, conditional grants, and provincial owned revenue. Over the 2021 MTEF period, no amount has been drawn from the provincial reserves to fund this allocated budget. The 2021 medium-term budget, the 2021 medium-term expenditure framework reflects reductions from the provincial equitable share baseline, including a combination of the freezing of salary increases announced in the 2020 budget and additional reductions to support the fiscal consolidation. The Limpopo equitable share receipt decreases from 63.3 billion in 2021 to 60 billion, or negative 3%, 3.7% in 2021-22. The allocation further decreased to 59.6 billion or negative 0.7% in the 22-23 and 59.3 billion or negative 0.5% in 22-23-24 financial years. The provincial equitable share continues to contract due to data updates, mainly towards movement of population in numbers and fiscal framework reductions. 465.5 million in 2021-22 and further 2.1 billion over outer 2 years of the MTEF due to impact of new data updates using the equitable share formula. 5.9 billion in 2021, 8 billion in 2023, 5.4 billion in 23-24 on compensation of employees due to the freezing of salary increases announced by the Minister of Finance. And lastly, the non-compensation of the employees' fiscal consolidation affected 737.7 million, 970 million, and 1.7 billion in 21-22, 22-23, and 23-24 financial years, respectively. Due to increased tax revenue collection at national, an amount of 916 million has been added to the Department of Health's equitable share for COVID-19 response program in 21-22 financial year. The province has also effected reductions amounting to 3 billion from the equitable share allocations to departments to cater for probable COVID-19 third surge. 1 billion of these funds has been ring-fenced in the Department of Health, while the remainder has been retained in the Provincial Revenue Fund as a contingency reserve. The conditional grant allocation of 21-22 financial year is 10.5 billion, 10.1 billion in 22-23, and 10.3 billion in 23-24 financial years. New grants include components of the comprehensive HIV and AIDS grant for mental health and oncology services in the Department of Health, and the informal settlement upgrading partnership grant in the Department of Governance, Human Settlements, and Traditional Affairs. The Department of Health is also allocated an amount of 167 million in the HIV and AIDS grant for the rollout of COVID-19 vaccination program in the province. I'll further outline conditional grant allocations later when we discuss the allocations per department. Our Premier, ladies and gentlemen, provincial governments are mandated by the Constitution to generate own revenue to augment the provincial share of national revenue allocated to departments. In the 2021-22 financial year, the province's own revenue collection is projected at 1.4 billion or 2.1% of the total provincial receipts, with the Department of Transport and the Provincial Treasury leading the collectors pack at 46.9% and 7.8% respectively. The provincial revenue is expected to increase from 1.4 billion to 1.5 billion in 2020-23 and to 1.6 billion in 23-24, supported by the provincial revenue enhancement strategies. In addition to own revenue, it is estimated that a total of 126 million will be received from donors during the 21-22 financial year. An amount of 122 million will be received by the Department of Education as donor funding to assist schools with infrastructure delivery, including building of sports centers, boreholes, school furniture, etc. The Department of Social Development expects an amount of 4 million from Health and Welfare SETA for training and development of internships. Madam Speaker, the provincial expenditure budget declines from 71.3 billion in 2020-21 to 68.7 billion in 21-22, but grows to 69.6 billion in 22-23 and to 72.3 billion in 23-24 financial years. This represents a decline by 3.6% in 21-22 and growth by 2.6% over the MTEF period. The provincial expenditure budget is allocated for specific functional areas, namely current payments, which include compensation of employees and goods and services, transfers and subsidies. Payments for capital assets are also and are allocated as follows. In current payments, an amount of 58.3 billion is allocated for the 21-22 financial year, representing 84.8% of total provincial allocation. Included in the current payments allocation for 21-22 financial year is the 46.8 billion for compensation of employees, which accounts to 68.1% of the total provincial expenditure budget and is expected to fund a staff complement of 118,971 employees. A total amount of 11.4 billion, 12.4 billion, and 14.6 billion is allocated to goods and services for 2021-22, 2022-23, and 23-24 respectively. Goods and services budget grows by 8.4% over the MTEF period. The increase is mainly influenced by savings realized from the compensation of employees and additional funding made available for the provincial priority projects that enhance economic growth within the province. Transfers and subsidies decreased from 8.8 billion in 2020-21 to 7.6 billion in 21-22 and is set to increase from 8.2 billion to 8.5 billion over the MTEF period. The increase of transfers and subsidies budget is as a result of budget increase in transfer of payments to other entities, NPOs, and departmental agencies by provincial departments. The provincial public entities are allocated an amount of 1.8 billion in 21-22, 1.8 in 22-23, and 1.7 billion during the 23-24 financial years. Significant reductions are implemented in Limpopo Economic Development Agency and Gateway Airport Authority due to phasing out of 3D entities from being allocated provincial equitable share. The Road Agency Limpopo allocation decreased by 18.8% in 21-22 due to reduction of the once-off allocation in the previous financial year. The payments for capital assets has increased from 1.9 billion in 2021 to 2.8 billion in 21-22 financial year. This is an increase by 51.2% in 21-22, as well as an increase on average by 11.5% over the MTEF due to once-off allocations for building and other fixed structures. Included in the above expenditure budget is an amount of 754 million that the province has allocated to priority projects. These allocations include an allocation of 200 million for the Musina Makado SCZ, 35 million for the Fitaho Mutubatsi SCZ, 30 million for the upgrading of resorts in the Economic Development Department, 100 million for the rollout of e-education strategy in the Department of Education, 58.1 million for the ICT projects in the Office of the Premier, 40 million for an emergency medical services computer-aided dispatch system, infrastructure projects in Road Agency Limpopo, and Sports, Arts and Culture, 20 million for 3 agricultural revitalization projects, the purchase of building and construction maintenance of traditional council offices. Also included in the above expenditure budget is the funding for infrastructure projects. The province has allocated 20.6 billion over the 2021 MTEF as follows. 7.1 billion in 21-22, 6.5 billion in 2022-23, and 6.9 billion in 23-24 financial years. In 2021-22, the Department of Public Works, Roads and Infrastructure is allocated a budget of 3 billion or 42%. Cogstar is allocated 1.1 billion or 16%. Department of Education 1.3 billion or 18%, and the Department of Health 1.3 billion or 19%, respectively. The Limpopo provincial government infrastructure is mainly funded through conditional grants and some provincial equitable share. The province has allocated the 20.6 billion across various infrastructure investment categories. 5.2 billion or 25% is allocated over the MTF towards new infrastructure, mainly for construction of new clinics, libraries, schools, upgrades of gravel roads to tar, center for place of safety, nature reserves and houses. 503 million and or 2.5% is allocated for rehabilitation and refurbishment. 4.1 billion or 20% for upgrading and additions of existing facilities, and 4.5 billion or 22% is also allocated for maintenance over the MTF respectively. It is therefore trusted that this allocation will stimulate the economy and contribute to the economic growth. Honorable Premier, ladies and gentlemen, the following is the 2021-22 financial allocations per department, including the allocations of conditional grants. Vote 1, which is the Office of the Premier, it's allocated 405 million in 21-22, 424 million in 22-23, and 464.8 million in 23-24 financial years. Included in the allocation is 58 million earmarked funding for the implementation of the ICT-related projects in the province. The allocation increases to average 5.6% of over the MTF. Vote 2, the provincial legislature receives an allocated budget of 395.5 million in 2021-22, 427 million in 22-23, and 511 million in the 21-22, or 3.4% over the MTF period, due to increase in the baseline allocation for political party funding. Vote 3, the Department of Education will receive 47.4% of the provincial budget, with an allocation of 32.5 billion in 21-22, 32.7 billion in 22-23, and the 33.5 billion in 23-24 financial years respectively. Included in the equitable share allocation as part of the provincial priority, the department is allocated an amount of 100 million to kickstart the implementation of e-education project in the province. The department has further been allocated 34 million in 21-22, 35.3 million in 22-23, and 36.9 million in 23-24 for sanitary dignity project. The department's 21-22 allocation includes 2.9 billion with 2.9 billion in 22-23, and further increase to 3 billion in 23-24 financial year to conditional grants, and 616 million from home revenue. The allocation decreased by 3.5% in 21-22 and increased on average by 0.9% over the MTF, mainly due to budget cuts from salary increase freeze. Vote 4, Agriculture and Rural Development is allocated a budget of 1.5 billion in 21-22, 1.9 billion in 22-23, 2 billion in 23-24 financial years respectively. The budget increases on average by 6% over the MTF period. Included in the departmental allocation is an amount of 20 million ring-fenced towards projects that are geared towards revitalization of agriculture and agro-processing value chain in the province. The department will receive conditional grants amounting to 327 million in 21-22, 326 million in 22-23, and 331 million in a 23-24 financial year. Vote 5, the provincial treasury received a budget allocation of 364 million in 21-22, 451 million in 22-23, and 500 million in a 23-24 financial year. The budget allocation is increasing on average by 4.4% over the MTEF. Included in the departmental allocation over the MTEF is an amount of 10.3 million for municipal support and 5 million for infrastructure development improvement program. Provincial Treasury has also been allocated additional funding of 10.3 million in 21-22, 10.8 million in 22-23, and 11.2 million in 23-24 for municipal intervention. Additional 5 million in 21-22, 5.2 million in 22-23, and 5.4 million in 23-24 has been allocated to Provincial Treasury for infrastructure development support. Vote 6, the Department of Economic Development, Environment and Tourism is allocated a budget of 1.3 billion in 21-22, of which 2.2 million is for EPWP conditional grant and 663 million is for the transfers to the public entities. The allocation increased by 6.1% over the MTEF period. As the department responsible for economic development in the province, and the allocation also include an amount of 265 million for Musina Makado and Fetaho Mutubat's special economic zones, 40 million for the turnaround of Great North Transport, and 15 million rands for tourism marketing. Vote 7, the Department of Health is the second highest recipient of allocations at 32% of the total provincial budget. The total allocation of the department is 21.9 billion in 122, 21 billion in 22-23, and 22.1 billion in 23-24 financial year. Included in the 2021-22 allocation is the 4 billion, 3.76 billion in the 22-23, and 3.6 billion in 23-24 financial year for conditional grants, and 578 million from own revenue in 21-22. The allocation decreased by 2.8% in 21-22 and decreased by an average of 0.7% over the MTEF period. Included in the equitable share allocation for the department will receive an amount of 1.9 billion ring-fenced for COVID-19 support and vaccine rollout programs. The department's grant frameworks were also amended in order to cater for the fight against the pandemic, and is allocated 167 million part of HIV and AIDS grant, and in 2021-22 to roll out the COVID-19 vaccine program. Vote 8, the Department of Transport and Community Safety is allocated 2 billion in 21-22, 2.3 billion in 22-23, and 2.4 billion in 23-24 financial years, respectively. The 21-22 allocation includes 426 million in 21-22, 422 million in 22-23, and 440 million in 23-24 for a conditional grant, and 39 million for transfer to Gateway Airport Authority Limited. The departmental allocation is increasing by 3% over the MTEF. Vote 9, the Department of Works, Roads and Infrastructure received a budget allocation of 3.2 billion in 21-22, 3.3 billion in 22-23, and 3.6 billion in 23-24 financial years. The allocation is a negative growth of 9.0% in 21-22 due to once-off allocation, in 2020-21 financial year. The allocation further includes 1.3 billion in 21-22, 1.2 billion in 22-23, and 1.2 billion in 23-24 financial year for conditional grants to be used on road maintenance and EPWP. The overall improvements of infrastructure delivery in the province. The department will transfer 1.1 billion to Road Agency Limpopo for operational costs and road maintenance and upgrading. Their allocation also includes an amount of 80 million earmarked for procurement of building office accommodation, 43.4 million for programs to get towards improvement of infrastructure delivery, and an amount of 42.5 million for new roads in the province. Vote 10, the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture received an allocation of 473 million in 21-22, 519 million in 22-23, and 513 million in 23-24 financial year. The allocation for 2021 includes conditional grants allocation amounting to 205 million in 21-22, 212 million in 22-23, and 211 million in 23-24 financial year. The allocation is increased by 10.5% in 21-22 and increased on average by 6.2% over the MTF period. Also included in the departmental allocation is an amount of 38.5 million for the Provincial Theatre and refurbishment and improvement of the Skumansdal Museum. Vote 11, the Cooperative Governance, Human Settlements and Traditional Affairs is allocated a budget of 2.3 billion in 21-22, 2.4 billion in 22-23, and 2.5 billion in 23-24 financial year. The allocation makes provision for the delivery of quality housing through the Human Settlement Development Grant and a newly introduced informal settlement upgrading partnership grant amounting to 1.1 billion in 21-22 financial year and 1.1 billion in 22-23 financial year. The grant will increase to 1.2 billion in 23-24 financial year. Also included in the allocation for 21-22 is an amount of 62 million for construction, maintenance, and finishing of traditional council offices, and further 15 million to the Kingship project. Vote 12, the Department of Social Development will receive 2 billion in 21-22, 2.2 billion in 22-23, and 2.4 billion during the 23-24 financial year. The allocation decreased by 11.6% in 21-22 and increased on average by 1.9% over the MTF period. Included in the budget allocation for 2021 and over the MTF is funds made available by national government for employment of social workers, food relief function shift, and gender-based violence as follows. 7 million in 21-22, 7.4 million in 22-23, and 7.7 million in 23-24 have been made available for food relief function shift. 61.5 million in 21-22, 64.4 million in 22-23, and 67 million in 23-24 for social workers grant conversion for employment of social workers. 13.9 million in 21-22, 14.6 million in 22-23, and 15 million in 23-24 for employment of social workers. 14.9 million in 21-22, 15.6 in 22-23, and 16.7 million in 23-24 respectively for HIV, TB, and STI gender-based violence, and 155 million in 21-22, 146 million in 22-23, and 154.4 million in 23-24 for early childhood development, EPWP, and social sector EPWP. The early childhood development grant has two components, one component for maintenance of the ECD centers and the other component for subsidies. Madam Speaker, allow me to assertively say, with utmost humility, that indeed this budget has struck light at the end of the dark tunnel. The budget is therefore set to reaffirm the people's trust and confidence that as leaders, we will do all in our powers to use the resources of their state wisely and with a full understanding of their wishes and their needs. It presents to us as the people of Limpopo an enabling opportunity to rebuild our economy and livelihoods as we reset our beautiful province in the path for a better life and prosperity for all. In the words of an African poet, novelist, and playwright, Ben Okri, I quote, "The most authentic thing about us is our capacity to create, to overcome, to endure, to transform, to love, and to be greater than our suffering," close quotes. Our Premier, allow me to express words of gratitude for your patience, guidance, and visionary leadership during these challenging times, and members of the executive for your support and cooperation. To Honorable Rudolph Pala, Chairperson and member of the Chairperson and members of the Portfolio Committee on Provincial Treasury, your continued oversight and support are appreciated at all times, and I sincerely thank you. I wish to take this opportunity to thank as well my wife and children for your never-ending support. Your prayers truly give me the new strength every time I wake up. To HOD, Gavin Pratt, and Team Treasury, thank you for the efforts and commitment in these difficult financial times, and I believe we've surely managed to develop and distribute an equitable budget that will encourage economic recovery and support the developmental state in the province. In conclusion, I wish to thank the community of Limpopo for your trust, solidarity, and cooperation during these challenging times. Moshomo au chabediatla, all hands on deck. Ke a leboha, ro leboha na cancer. Bye, dankie.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable MEC. The bill, together with the supporting documents, are referred to the Portfolio Committee on Provincial Treasury for consideration and to report back to the House. Item 8, are there any announcements? None. This House is adjourned to Tuesday, 16 March 2021 at 10 hours in this Leboa Kgomo Legislative Chamber. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker.